SA 200 Overall Objectives of the Independent Auditor. This standard outlines the overall objectives of the independent auditor, which include obtaining reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. It emphasizes the importance of conducting the audit in accordance with the SAs to enhance the credibility of the financial statements. SA 210 Agreeing the terms of audit engagements. SA 210 focuses on the auditor's responsibility to establish the terms of the audit engagement with the client. This includes understanding the scope of the audit, the responsibilities of both parties, and ensuring that the terms are documented in an engagement letter, which serves as a formal agreement. SA 220 Quality Control for an Audit of Financial Statements. This standard addresses the auditor's responsibility for quality control in audits. It requires firms to establish policies and procedures to ensure that audits are conducted in accordance with professional standards, emphasizing the need for a systematic approach to quality management throughout the audit process. SA 230 Audit Documentation. SA 230 emphasizes the importance of audit documentation as a record of the audit work performed. It requires auditors to prepare documentation that provides sufficient and appropriate evidence to support their audit opinion, ensuring that it is clear, organized, and accessible for review. SA 240 The Auditor's Responsibilities Relating to Fraud. This standard outlines the auditor's responsibilities in relation to fraud during the audit. It requires auditors to assess the risk of material misstatement due to fraud, design audit procedures to address those risks, and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit process. SA 250 Consideration of Laws and Regulations. SA 250 highlights the auditor's responsibility to consider compliance with laws and regulations that may have a material effect on the financial statements. Auditors must evaluate the implications of non-compliance and communicate any identified issues to management and those charged with governance. SA 260 Communication with those charged with governance. This standard focuses on the auditor's responsibility to communicate effectively with those charged with governance. It requires auditors to discuss significant findings, including the audit scope, risks, and any significant deficiencies in internal control, fostering transparency and accountability. SA 265 Communicating Deficiencies in Internal Control. SA 265 requires auditors to communicate significant deficiencies in internal control to management and those charged with governance. This communication should be timely and clear, enabling the organization to address the identified deficiencies effectively. SA 300 Planning an Audit of Financial Statements. This standard emphasizes the importance of planning the audit to ensure its effectiveness. It requires auditors to set objectives, assess risks, and determine the scope of the audit, facilitating a structured approach to the audit process. SA 310 Identifying and Assessing Risks. SA 310 focuses on the auditor's responsibility to identify and assess risks of material misstatement through understanding the entity and its environment. This includes evaluating internal controls and external factors that may impact the financial statements. SA 315 Identifying and Assessing Risks of Material Misstatement. This standard provides guidance on assessing risks of material misstatement at both the financial statement and assertion levels. Auditors must consider both inherent and control risks to design appropriate audit responses. SA 320 Materiality in Planning and Performing an Audit. SA 320 discusses the concept of materiality and its application in the audit process. Auditors must determine materiality levels to plan the audit effectively and evaluate the impact of identified misstatements on the financial statements. SA 330 Responses to Assessed Risks. This standard outlines the auditor's responses to assessed risks of material misstatement. It requires auditors to design and implement appropriate audit procedures based on the identified risks, ensuring that sufficient appropriate audit evidence is obtained. SA 402 Audit Considerations Relating to Service Organizations. SA 402 addresses the auditor's considerations when an entity uses a service organization. Auditors must evaluate the impact of the service organization's controls on the audit of the entity's financial statements and obtain sufficient evidence regarding those controls. SA 450 Evaluation of Misstatements. This standard focuses on the evaluation of misstatements identified during the audit. Auditors must assess whether the misstatements are material, individually or in aggregate, and determine the appropriate actions to address them. SA 500 Audit Evidence. SA 500 defines audit evidence and outlines the auditor's responsibility to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to support the audit opinion. It emphasizes the need for a mix of different types of evidence to form a reliable basis for conclusions. SA 501 Audit Evidence Specific Considerations. This standard discusses specific considerations for obtaining audit evidence for selected items, such as inventory and related party transactions. Auditors must tailor their procedures to address the unique risks associated with these items. SA 505 External Confirmations. SA 505 addresses the use of external confirmations as a means of obtaining audit evidence. Auditors should design confirmation requests to obtain relevant and reliable evidence regarding account balances and transactions. SA 510 Initial Audit Engagements Opening Balances. This standard outlines the auditor's responsibilities regarding opening balances in initial audit engagements. Auditors must obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence about whether the opening balances contain misstatements that could materially affect the current period's financial statements. SA 520 Analytical Procedures. SA 520 discusses the use of analytical procedures as a substantive audit procedure and during the planning phase. Auditors must apply analytical procedures to identify unusual transactions or trends that may indicate risks of material misstatement. SA 530 Audit Sampling. This standard provides guidance on the use of audit sampling in obtaining audit evidence. Auditors must determine the appropriate sample size and selection methods to ensure that the sample is representative of the population. SA 540 Auditing Accounting Estimates. SA 540 addresses the auditor's responsibilities regarding accounting estimates and related disclosures. Auditors must evaluate the reasonableness of estimates made by management and the adequacy of related disclosures in the financial statements. SA 550 Related Parties. This standard discusses the auditor's responsibilities in identifying and assessing risks related to related party transactions. Auditors must ensure that such transactions are appropriately disclosed and accounted for in the financial statements. SA 560 Subsequent Events. SA 560 outlines the auditor's responsibilities regarding events occurring after the reporting period. Auditors must evaluate whether subsequent events require adjustment to or disclosure in the financial statements. SA 570 Going Concern. This standard addresses the auditor's responsibilities in evaluating whether the entity is a going concern. Auditors must assess management's plans and the entity's ability to continue operating for the foreseeable future. SA 580 Written Representations. SA 580 discusses the importance of obtaining written representations from management regarding various aspects of the financial statements. These representations serve as additional evidence to support the audit opinion. SA 600 Audits of Group Financial Statements. SA 600 provides guidance on auditing group financial statements and the role of component auditors. Auditors must ensure that the group audit is conducted in a manner that addresses the risks associated with the components. SA 610 Using the work of internal auditors. This standard addresses the auditor's responsibilities when using the work of internal auditors. Auditors must evaluate the adequacy of the internal audit function and determine how much reliance can be placed on their work. SA 620 Using the work of an auditor's expert. SA 620 discusses the auditor's responsibilities when using the work of an expert. Auditors must assess the competence, capabilities, and objectivity of the expert to ensure that their work is reliable. SA 700 Forming an Opinion and Reporting. SA 700 outlines the auditor's responsibilities in forming an opinion on the financial statements and the reporting requirements. Auditors must ensure that their report is clear, concise, and complies with the relevant standards. SA 701 Communicating Key Audit Matters. This standard discusses the communication of key audit matters in the auditor's report. Auditors must identify and explain matters that were of most significance in the audit, enhancing transparency for users of the financial statements. SA 705, Modifications to the Opinion. SA 705 addresses the circumstances under which the auditor may modify their opinion in the report. This includes situations where there is a material misstatement or a limitation on the scope of the audit. SA 706 Emphasis of matter and other matter paragraphs. This standard discusses the use of emphasis of matter and other matter paragraphs in the auditor's report. These paragraphs highlight important information that is relevant to users but does not affect the auditor's opinion. SA 710 Comparative Information. SA 710 addresses the auditor's responsibilities regarding comparative information in financial statements. Auditors must ensure that the comparative figures are appropriately presented and comply with the applicable financial reporting framework. SA 720 The auditor's responsibilities relating to other information. This standard discusses the auditor's responsibilities regarding other information included in documents containing audited financial statements. Auditors must read the other information to identify any inconsistencies with the audited financial statements. SA 800 Audits of financial statements prepared in accordance with special purpose frameworks. SA 800 provides guidance on auditing financial statements prepared in accordance with special purpose frameworks. Auditors must ensure that the audit is conducted in accordance with the relevant standards and that the financial statements are presented fairly. SA 805 Audits of single financial statements. This standard addresses the auditor's responsibilities when auditing single financial statements or specific elements. Auditors must apply the relevant auditing standards to ensure that the audit is effective and provides reliable evidence. SA 810 Engagements to report on summary financial statements. SA 810 discusses the auditor's responsibilities in reporting on summary financial statements. Auditors must ensure that the summary financial statements are consistent with the audited financial statements. SA 900 Audits of financial statements prepared in accordance with IFRS. This standard provides guidance on auditing financial statements prepared in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS. Auditors must ensure compliance with IFRS and the relevant auditing standards.